water, earth, fire, air.
I think there are a series that must be watched before we die. Avatar: The Last Airbender is definitely on the list. If not, you should include it in your list. Avatar: The Last Airbender is a fine example of fiction from all perspectives: storytelling, world building, and character development. This time we will discuss why Avatar: The Last Airbender is one of the best series of all time. This time we will discuss the main character in this series, the Avatar himself, the Last Airbender. One of the most prominent strengths of Avatar: The Last Airbender is its character development. But as the main protagonist, who is often less popular than Zuko, the villain who turns into Aang's best friend at the end of the story, the reason is because the character is considered monotonous and lacks problems. The plot does not teach the other three elements to most people, and they may not find them interesting. And to be honest, Aang at the beginning of the series is the same character as Aang at the end of the series: humorous, an animal lover, a vegetarian, open with his emotions, loving peace, and rejecting violence. The type of character who, from the beginning of the story to the end, doesn't change. Usually they have a firm stance that will be confronted by their opposition in the story. However, Aang's ability to be a flat character is the key to Avatar: The Last Airbender's storytelling and world. Why? In order to answer this question, we must first understand the history of Air Nomads and the philosophy of airbending. This is old sensei. You're a sensei for your life. In the opening show, each element is accompanied by calligraphy, which is the hallmark of the nation. The writing on the back of the air means harmony, a symbol of the character of the peace-loving Air Nomads. Aang himself is consistent in the value of his love of peace from episode 1 to the end. This is what makes him confused when he has to face Fire Lord Ozai. Everyone said he had to kill Ozai. Even when Aang consulted the previous Avatar, he felt that he could not get any other advice other than killing Ozai. Even though Aang firmly adheres to the values of Air Nomad, he's still to bear it. But actually, the Avatar before Aang did not specifically suggest that Aang kill Ozai. They just want Aang to be firm and focused on his duties as the Avatar, the protector of the world. Luckily, Aang managed to find a way to conquer Ozai without having to kill him, as well as being successful in not betraying his own principles as an Air Nomad. This is proof that Aang is indeed not a character that is built to change. Aang has been an airbender with a title master since the beginning of the story, despite being only 12 years old. To get that title, an airbender must understand the 36 moves and the philosophy of airbending, or create a new technique. Aang himself knows 35 moves and created the airball technique. That's why he has a blue arrow tattoo on his head. Even though he was trapped in the energy world for 100 years and returned when his entire nation was wiped out in the genocide of the Fire Nation, Air Nomad culture itself takes a lot from Tibetan, Buddhist, and Hindu traditions, including the philosophy of nonviolence and love for one another that Aang exemplifies. This also affects airbending techniques that emphasize self-defense or evasion. Bagua is a Chinese martial art that is used as a model. This circular movement is frequently used to avoid opponent attacks and to discover their weaknesses. That's why we often see him jump and move behind his opponent. But that doesn't mean airbending isn't as deadly as the other three main elements. In a desperate situation, the power of airbending can have fatal consequences. Just look at the pile of corpses of soldiers from the Fire Nation in front of Guru Jatso's body. If you look closely, the avatar of the last airbender also lacks any scenes of people being killed. Even in battle scenes, indeed, many important characters die, but the idea of non-violence is shown visually by eliminating the murder scene. Consistency in the teachings of Air Nomads and the title masters he held at a young age. Instead, it becomes a weapon in storytelling that ultimately makes the audience drift into the world of this avatar. Aang must not know everything. He tends to be a guide and decision maker in the adventures of the avatar group. Even though he is a flat character, that doesn't mean he doesn't have inner struggles. Like other main characters, he also changes and learns new things. Although not as big as the changes in Zuko, Katara, Sokka, or Zula. What has been a debate throughout the series is whether he should follow his own identity as an air nomad or carry out his morality as an avatar. From the start, we know that Ian never wanted to be an avatar. He felt the burden was too heavy and eventually ran away from the training process. That's what makes him blame himself when he finds out that he's been missing for 100 years and wakes up as the last airbender. Story arc on is story arc survivor guilt. Aang's journey is about him forgiving himself and starting to accept his destiny as the avatar. But this inner struggle is even more interesting because of Air Nomads' blood and philosophy of letting go of lust. Letting go of lust will bring enlightenment. But to get to that point, Aang must leave all his worldly desires. All of Aang's inner struggles are explained as clearly as possible when questioned, as staying away from lust and leaving all the lusts of the world, including Aang. Love for Katara, the only way to become a good avatar. This moral ambiguity also makes Aang have relatable points. He was probably wise, knowledgeable, and a master of airbending from the start. But the way Aang questions his culture, while respecting and practicing it while still remaining skeptical, is interesting to watch. Although it has the slowest character development, and the characters are perhaps the most static. But imagine Aang as an unstable adolescent who still doesn't know much, like Sokka, or who is confused about his identity, like Zuko. We, as spectators, can only focus on Sokka and Zuko's own world, and the experience of watching and enjoying Avatar: The Last Airbrusher will definitely be different.
But I believe Aang can save the world.